So I'm going to give you a quick rundown of this Holley EFI with the HyperSpark installation that we did here. And the Holley unit is tucked back down in there. You might be able to see it. It's hard to tell. But I tucked it down in behind the battery. And then there's two wires that come up here, feed across, tuck in. And then I ended up having to make a loop with those two wires here because I need to get them to the distributor, and it's not as far as you might think, and I didn't want to have to redo the connectors, although it is possible. The coil pack is there, the distributor, and the Holley Sniper throttle body. The installation was fairly straightforward and simple. They give you this apparently patent pending or patented unit, this little plastic cup that just kind of makes determining the #1 cylinder, because it's got that little tab mark on it, just makes installing and setting up for that #1 distributor, #1 spark plug works pretty well that way. You can see basic installation here. The installation of the distributor dropped in. Now, I did have a little bit of difficulty getting the distributor to drop down in, and they make reference to the using a screwdriver to rotate the oil pump shaft down in the bottom. I didn't actually do it that way. I set the distributor in the way I wanted it to be clocked, and then I went ahead and by hand, using a long ratchet, I rotated the engine after I set the distributor on, and when I rotated the engine I made 2 full revolutions so I would get back to the #1 spark plug. But after rotating the engine, the distributor sat right down and didn't have any issues and dropped into place. It seems to work real easy. It works real well. I plumbed the fuel line with some hard line to try to keep it as neat and out of the way as I possibly could. The installation still needs a little cleanup here and stuff, and I still have a few more things to do, but this is the basic Holley EFI Sniper HyperSpark system installed. The tying to the Holley EFI, the HyperSpark parts, used only a red and a white wire coming off the distributor. I'm not sure why Holley didn't use a pink so that it would be the same as the rest of them, but they used a red wire coming off the distributor and a white wire. The white wire tied to the white wire in the EFI system. I tied the red wire to one of the pink wires, and the way I did it was I stripped it back. I used solder, I used shrink tube. I don't trust little funky connectors. If I use a connector, as you can see down in here, I did use a connector. The connectors I use crimped on and heat shrink the connector to the wire, so I wanted to make sure I had a nice solid connection there. You can see there's the wire that comes off of the EFI or off of the HyperSpark system that plugs into the coil. That's all that goes to the coil. And then there's the red and the black wire, which you can see there, right there. That is the red and the black wire for the HyperSpark. The system's installed and ready to go. Now, the one additional item I had to do was the firmware and the ECU firmware, the firmware for the handheld, had to be updated. There's the handheld, somewhere in there. And when I did the update for the handheld, it was a little trying, but I got that done, and in a bit I hope to be able to get this thing started and then set the timing. The one thing they say in the directions is that you've got to set a tell the ECU what the timing is, so you have to go into the handheld, and I believe the option is static timing, but I'll know more on a future video. But you set up the timing, and then after you get the timing set up, you have to adjust the timing on the system so that if you tell the static timing it's 10 degrees, you have to exactly set your vehicle to 10 degrees timing, and then from then on the Holley system will take over and do the timing for you. In the setup, one of the things I ran into was, what is the timing you want for wide open throttle? As a blueprint engine, this is supposed to be set at 34 degrees max, so I set it for 32 degrees, and then I'll test for ping and see if I don't have a ping problem, and if I have no ping problem, then I can go up to 34, and if it develops a ping, then I'll go back to 33. But play with it in 2 degree increments, and then once you reach the point you don't have a ping, then you can go up or down depending upon what your settings are, getting to the point of maximum timing before it does ping. This happens to be a small block Chevy motor, so if you have any issues or any questions, the Holley tech support guys are absolutely fantastic. I called just kind of as a test because I had such a hard time with the fast fuel injection system. I called and spoke directly with the tech support guys at Holley. They were knowledgeable, they answered the phone right away, and I was able to get my questions answered very quickly. The frustration with fast was always, you know, you call in and it was literally a crapshoot on whether you did or didn't get somebody that would know what they were talking about. So look for the upcoming video of the actual first start, the setting, the timing, and then we'll take it for a drive and see how it works. Thanks for watching. If you like my video, click like. Thanks.